Welcome back. I have an Etchr sketchbook here. It is brand new. I have not done anything in this sketchbook yet. This sketchbook is actually intended for a community, a membership community I belong to with artist Natalie Eslick. It's called The Hedgerow, and it is all about uh, animals and sketching and drawing and painting and building a practice for yourself. And I took Natalie's course, Drawn to Wild, and absolutely loved it. I haven't finished it. It's a sketch a week for 52 weeks, and I'm about at week 18. Simply, because of life and you know how that goes. But for this year, instead of doing Drawn to Wild, there is another year-long type of sketchbook practice that she's doing. It's called the Little Book of Wild Pages, and so that is my inspiration for the cover of this book that I want to paint. Now, I know a lot of people in that community are adding theirs to the inside cover, but I really want to paint the cover of this because I don't like the white. And I know that after some time of working in this, it's going to get dirty and probably not look all that great. So this is the sketchbook. It's portrait, it's hot press. It is 100% cotton and acid free. I have not used it yet, so I can't really tell you what I think. I've never used one of these, but I have done some research on YouTube, and I've looked at other people's videos and what they did. I know that I do not want to paint this in acrylic. I'm going to do this in watercolor, and I definitely want to add some animals, probably bird. I was thinking a fox maybe, and a little banner here that says the Little Book of Wild Pages. So I haven't kind of fleshed out the composition just yet, but I want to try this watercolor ground. I've tried it before on canvas a long time ago, and it's been sitting in my cabinet. So I wanted to give it another try. It's made by Schminke, and um, basically you put it on canvas or wood or anything. And I'm going to use the box as my palette, and I'm just going to start coating this. It said to put on 3 coats of this. I don't know that I'll need that many, but uh, we'll see. This is pretty thick and not very spreadable, so I can see why it probably requires a couple few coats just to make sure that you get all of the area that you're actually covering. I might do some pen work on this too. So I'm torn between splashing around some watercolor and doing some ink work on top of it, or actually just painting the animals on here. I'm not sure just yet. Maybe I'll do a little bit of both. This is soaking right into this canvas. So I can't imagine what, you know, applying paint right to the cover right away would do. So probably be a little bit frustrating, I think, if you don't have gesso or some sort of a ground on this first. I know right now that I will be adding another coat. And you see how much that took. I mean, it just sucked it right up. So it's a good thing I've got a pretty full bottle here. So that's the first coat. And I'm guessing that the next couple of coats are going to go on a lot easier since there's already something down. Um, so once this is dry and I've added a few more coats, I'll come back and we'll talk about what I'm going to put on here and lay everything out. Okay, so I think I have come up with something that I want to do on the front of this Etchr sketchbook. I primed the whole thing with the watercolor ground, and it got really, it's really stiff and kind of hard to open, but um, it's actually been maybe a week or so since I did this, and I tried sketching on here. Um, and it's a little bit tough because the surface is so textured, especially now that I put this watercolor ground on. So what I decided to do instead is I went onto my iPad. I did this rough sketch, and what I'm going to do is transfer that onto the cover of this just by taking a really soft lead. That's an HB. So I'm gonna find, I've got some stuff here that is a soft lead. Here we go. So I've got a 6B pencil, and I am just gonna scribble on the back of this. And this is a great way to work out, you know, a composition before you actually start painting. And this is gonna be really loose. I'm gonna keep it, um, I'm gonna keep it probably just to the major shapes like the banner, the fox, and the bird. And the rest of it I'll kind of, I think, figure out as I go along. So I'm gonna grab a pencil and I am gonna go ahead and start transferring this drawing so I can get a rough idea of where everything's gonna live. And let's see if this is actually, yeah, it's transferring. It's not the greatest. Um, but it beats um, trying to sketch on this surface and erase and things like that. So I'm going to transfer this, and I'll probably speed this up because this will be fairly boring, I think. Something like that. Now, my idea is also to add a bit of a background and do maybe some blurred out trees. And we're just going to see how this works. I've watched some other videos on YouTube, and uh, I know that the watercolor seems to absorb right into the book, but I'm hoping that now that we've put this watercolor ground on, it'll be a little bit easier. So I'm going to have to remove some of the stuff in here, my little pieces of paper. I might just leave that in there, but I'm going to put this face down and work like that because the background that I want to put on here, I'm going to carry over onto the back side as well. So I'm going to get set up for that. And when we come back, it'll be the moment of truth. Okay, so this is what I'm calling the moment of truth, right? Um, and if all else fails and this doesn't work and I don't like the way that it looks, I will paint over this with acrylic. So I have a real watery puddle going on with some yellow ochre, and I mixed a little bit of um, purple into it just to kind of mute it. And I'm going to start on this back cover, and the idea is just to put in a wash and then add in maybe some trees. So, well, that seems interesting to me. I'm going to give that a second because it seems to be just sitting right on top, and it's not absorbing at all. Okay, that's kind of weird. The watercolor ground is almost acting like a repellent. So I'm going to cover this whole page back here. So I'm trying to give it a little bit of a vignette kind of a look. I don't know if that's going to work. This is just really weird. Um, all right. Now let's go ahead and try some trees here. It's not really feeling too good about it is. Okay. I'm not hating it. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush out and dry it off a little bit and just give this a little bit of a swipe down here. Maybe we can add in a little bit of foliage down at the bottom. Like I said, this is just kind of, it's a little bit bizarre. So I'm glad I started on the back. Um, and some of these have really kind of just really softened out. So I'm going to go back in and add a little bit more definition. Maybe we'll just leave that. And I'm going to hit this with my heat gun. And then I'm going to try and add some more trees in the foreground and see what happens. So I surprisingly do not hate it. I need to go back in here and add a little bit more of a wash. Maybe I'll leave it like that. I don't know. Um, but what I need to do is continue it on this side because I want these two halves to be cohesive. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I think I'm okay to paint over everything. Hopefully, I don't lose my lines too much. I think actually I'm going to paint around the fox and around the bird. We'll see what happens. And because we know that this fox, this will be darker than the background paint, so we would be okay. The chickadee, he does have some white on him, but I'm thinking to myself, as far as process goes, that any of the white that I lose, I can always go back with some acrylic paint or maybe a Posca pen. So I'm going to try this out, this side first. I think, yeah, let's go ahead and get this in, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so far so good. I am gonna try maybe adding a few trees that are a little bit more defined on the other side and see what happens. Okay, maybe I can continue this little grass. Well, I am looking at my other side here, and everything has kind of soaked right in. It's pretty easy to pick the paint back up again, though, I will say that. So I think I'm going to go ahead and I don't know how that's pretty dry right there. I'm going to start adding in some more defined trees. And this is obviously it's still wet because it's spreading, but that's okay because I want to try this out anyway. And I like these trees back here being less defined and a little blurry. And you can see what I'm doing with I'm just using the tip of my brush and I'm just kind of paying attention to the direction of the branches. You know, they start um, upward, facing upward, and then as they move down the tree, they start um, heading in the opposite direction. And I think we're going to put this guy back in here. Okay, so I want to put in some of this green, and I want to get rid of this line here too. I don't really care for that. So I think I'm gonna bring the water kind of all the way down, get some of these edges that I missed. Maybe we can drop in a little more color. We'll see what happens. And I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow into that. As things get warmer, the closer they get. I don't know. We'll save that for the end. Doing any sort of little detail grasses and stuff. I can create like a little vignette. I can get something maybe in here. And then I can always go back in where this has gotten really weird and add some bushes. kind of cover that up. I don't know how if it's going to spread. It's not too bad. Okay. And I'm just dropping in some darker blue. I don't know what these things are back here, but this has gotten a little bit weird because this is so faded. I'm going to leave this alone and I want to see how this dries. So you can see over here on this side, we've lost a lot of the edges on those again. And oof, that's still really wet. Okay, so I'm going to hit this side with the dryer. And I've got a little bit of a white spot. There we go. If you find yourself at that point where you're getting like a little bit frustrated and you know you shouldn't be messing with it, but you keep messing with it, that's a good indicator it's time to stop, walk away from it, and let it dry. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So this has definitely had some time to dry. And I think instead of messing with this any longer and putting some more trees in, I'm going to go ahead and just work on the other side and get this fox started by adding in some washes of color. So I'm going to start with the lightest color that I see, and I'm using smaller brushes because we're working in smaller areas. So we're going to go ahead and get started with this. And I'm getting my paper towel at the ready. And hopefully painting the animals goes a little bit smoother than getting that landscape in there. And we are going to fix that. We're going to go back and fix that once we get something down on this other side. So I'm starting with the lightest yellow that I see, and I'll do that for all the areas of the fox. I'll start with the lightest color that I see, and just drop these washes in. And I'm probably going to speed this up just a little bit. You'll be able to see what I'm doing, and hopefully it's pretty self-explanatory. So now that I've got a couple of layers of color into this fox, I'm going to go ahead and start with the wreath. And I'm going to use this small brush and I'm going to make some messy lines. They're just going to be really wonky kind of lines. And I'm not going for anything straight. We want this to look like it's like a wreath made out of maybe grapevines or something like that. And you can vary the thickness of the line, but the idea is to keep it moving in an uneven sort of way so that it looks natural. So I'm just trying to find out or figure out right here where I need to take the wreath under the banner. And once we outline the banner a little bit better, it'll be easier to see. And I'm taking a bigger brush with a darker color and making a thicker line. And I'm just wrapping, I'm just kind of wrapping, one around the other so that it has this kind of natural look to it. Okay, so I feel pretty good about that. And I'm going to go ahead and start on the chickadee. And we'll just add in some really light washes of a dark color. And the first layer of watercolor, the way I look at it is you're really creating a map for yourself where the dark values are. And you just build up the layers as you go. So that's what we're doing on this pretty much this first pass. Okay, so the next thing I think that I want to do is add in some plants or some leaves that are kind of poking out alongside the wreath. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add in some stems and then we'll build off of the stems and add in the leaves. And I'll do this in a few different places. Okay, so this is all really dry, and I'm going to start adding in some details. And I do want to say before I continue, I did forget to turn my mic on in the last segment of the video, so I had to do a voiceover. If you're wondering why it sounded like a little bit disjointed. So I'm going to continue painting, and I think it's going to be pretty self-explanatory. I might speed some of this up a little bit, but I'm going to continue adding in some details, and I'll probably go in with some colored pencils, like I said, at some point. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty good about where I'm at so far with the watercolor, but I want to go in here and I want to get the eye in just a little bit better. So I'm going to try this with some colored pencils and see how that goes. Okay, I am feeling pretty good about where this is at right now. And I think I am going to add in a little tree over here, something a little bit darker than what's back there right now. And I think that's still going to be it'll be really light when it dries. That's okay. Okay. So I think the last thing that I might do is add some grass in the corners here. And you can see that I did a little bit of detail stuff with the colored pencils, but on top of this canvas, it really picks up the texture. You can see it in the shadows here. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to um, add in the grass on this side with watercolor. And you can, just kind of hold your brush on the side and kind of do a flicking motion. It's almost like a dry brush. I just wanted to get something in the foreground so that this page, the back of this looks a little bit more finished. I think I'll go in with something a little bit darker and a little more concentrated on this brush. Oh, I know I didn't spend a lot of time talking while I was doing this. Sometimes I think it's more helpful just to watch. And the nice thing about working on something like this is that it's a sketchbook. So I can always, if I see something that needs to be added, I can I can always add something later. So I think I'm going to leave that alone. And I think I'm pretty much finished with this side. I didn't do anything with the spine, and I feel like I need to because that looks really awful and unfinished. And I was just cleaning up my studio and I took a look at that and I thought, no, I can't leave it like that. So I'm going to break out my watercolor again and just go over this lightly with some of this pale yellow and maybe a little bit of green, something just like very um, blurry, kind of like these other trees. And something else that I wanted to mention too is sealing this. So I don't want this to get wet because I know that this will come right off. And so instead of using like a brush on varnish that will re wet everything, I'm going to use a wax. And there are several artist wax that you can use. but that's what I'm gonna do to finish this off. Once I'm absolutely sure that I'm not gonna add anything else, I'll add a layer of wax to protect the sketchbook. So that is it. I hope you give it a try. The watercolor ground, I think, made a huge difference. This was a lot of fun and it turned out a lot better than I expected. So thanks for being here, and I will see you next time. Take care.